two texts from the lectionary for this Sunday, the first from the Old Testament in Genesis. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth was a formless void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. The gospel text from the lectionary for today comes from the gospel according to Matthew in the 28th chapter. Please stand as you are able for the reading of the gospel. Now the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain to which Jesus had directed them. When they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. And Jesus came and said to them, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything that I have commanded you. And remember, I am with you always to the end of the age." This is the wisdom of God. You may be seated. I went to seminary during the time of the liturgical reform movement, which was stressing to preach on the lectionary. Well, I was a Presbyterian and I'd never heard of the lectionary. So I was a little bit dubious, but I did, and I found sometimes the lectionary has its own wisdom and surprises. Look at today. What are these texts? The first, Genesis. What's Genesis about? It's about the beginning. And then we have the very end of Matthew, and what's it about? I just said it. The end. Texts about beginnings and endings now. You think maybe God had a hand in that? I know that these two texts could be anywhere because beginnings and endings in our life are happening all the time. Every day is a beginning and an ending. Monastics, as part of their practice, would practice to essentially think of themselves as dying when they go to bed and getting up to a new life each day, beginning and ending and beginning, I guess. Larger events in life are about endings and beginnings. Right now, this season, we have graduations. And what else? Weddings. Thank God for that. There's also dips and turns in relationships and circumstances that provide beginnings and endings. And then there is the seasons, which are always beginnings and endings. And what I want to tell you is summer is coming. Okay, who are the nerds out there who understand the reference? From Game of Thrones? Think about it. Winter is coming. Summer is coming. I think we have more endings and beginnings in our society because we move so much. And if we, that's part of our life and we're moving all the time, I do think that we Methodists can be called experts. My first appointment in our annual conference was at Centenary United Methodist Church in Spokane. The ending that I had right before going to Spokane to that appointment was in Kyoto, Japan. I want you to think about this for a minute. We lived about 4 blocks from the Imperial Palace. I was studying at Doshisha University, one of the oldest Christian universities in Japan, practicing at Shotokuji, and then I went to the Inland Empire of trucks and beaters. I had been penciled in to be at Blaine Memorial as an associate. If you know, Blaine Memorial is the Japanese, traditional Japanese church. But then the spouse of the person who was supposed to go where I ended up didn't like the parsonage. Boom. That's itineracy. I had Spokane, I said. Surely nobody spoke Japanese in Spokane. Little did I know that we have a church there too. Right? And then I went downtown one day and I found these wonderful women who had a little shop in which they rented out videos of Japanese TV. Videos, remember. Sometimes you just have to be open to the beginnings that come to you that you don't know are going to be there. Subsequently, 8.5 years in Anacortes, 9.5 years in Fairwood. I grew up in a Presbyterian church where the pastor was there from the time I was 6 until I left. He was there for probably 35 years. That was my model, what pastoral ministry would be. I was a bit shocked to find out that Methodists moved so much. In Centenary, we had a centennial, and over that 100 years, the average stay for a pastor was 2.5. I am, as a homebody, not naturally an itinerant, but I found value in it, as change is ubiquitous. It's innate, it's inherent. Nothing that is real is stationary. Whatever is real is in motion. I'm not one who believes that Joshua actually stopped the sun, because if that happened, the earth would break apart and we would have a much bigger climate change problem. I find that the church is divided in another way, and that is between those who want to delimit, corral, and domesticate the gospel, and those who live in the flow of the Spirit. Those seeking to house-train the faith in order to have control are the fundamentalists, and it is surmised by them that they can own the faith. Well, that's politically expedient, because who wants to let people think? Very dangerous. I think we Methodists, in reflecting on it, are closer to the truth of reality, that it is always in motion and changing. I also believe the Bible as an authority is a witness to change. Understandings in the Bible of God and salvation, justice and righteousness have always been changing. And you can see the change in the Bible. And there is interpretation in the Bible. Jesus interpreted his Bible in the Sermon on the Mount. The Bible is not monolithic. It's not a single voice. It's many voices, and it's always mysterious. More than we realize, diversity and continuous maturation mirrors reality. Reality is also inherently connected, interdependent, and interrelated. So this is another thing that I liked about Methodism when I went to seminaries. Our polity is called a connectional system. Does everybody know that? It's very much countercultural, because we're not into connections in America anymore. And this really attracted to me, because I think we recognize our dependencies and our essential relatedness to each other and then to God. Another nerd comment. Only the Sith deal in absolutes. As a connectional church, we look at the church and its clergy collectively, as all in relationship and interconnected, like the body of Christ. The task that we go about is not to find the right or the best church, but to accept and bless the church that is here. The same with the pastor. The task is to receive the pastor who is appointed, receiving those gifts and graces, and then the next pastor. It's not a competition. We are all one. I know what my gifts and graces are and what they are not. I tend to be a thinking person. My father was a professor. My mother was a teacher. So I'm a thinking person, and I like to write. I like to teach. I like to preach. I like dialogue over debate, because in dialogue we get to hear people's stories. I've always been involved with whatever church I've been in the evangelistic ministry, and the reason is not that I hope I can convert somebody, but I love to hear people's stories. They transform each other through hearing each other's stories. Well, I'm not just a thinker, I also, I do like people. I love children. And one of the things I'm really sad about is we haven't had a children's moment for so long. And for so long, those children's moments sustained us, didn't they? So when you get them back, think of me. I do pretty well with youth, I think, and I understand parents having changed a diaper or two, and now that I'm older, I can commiserate with the old folks and about their pains in their bodies and the absences and all of that. Oh! On the other hand, I'm not good with organization. Oh, I heard that. I don't like to file things, paper or computer. I'm not good with details. I like to look at the larger picture, but when you look at the larger picture, you know what happens? You forget things, you misplace things and lose things. And my phone, for God's sake, it's always trying to get away from me. I love to baptize infants, but many times I've lost the baptismal certificate. I'm not a savant with technology. Everybody knows that. I believe there are ghosts in computers. I really do. Maybe it's the beginning of AI. And regarding AI, I just want to say one more time, I've always said this, that with every new invention, there's an equal opportunity for good and evil. So when we look at AI, what I would like us to think about is how well we've done with social media and cell phones. That ought to guide us. I'm not very good with music. When I came here, Randy had been in the choir. Oh, the disappointment that I wasn't going to sing in the choir. I'm not good with crafts. Not very theatrical. If there are two committee meetings I would rather not go to, it's finance and trustees. I don't particularly like money, and I don't particularly affirm private property. I'm not STEM. Everybody know what STEM are? Science, technology, engineering, and math. I'm an art. Art, history, religion, and philosophy. I know you won't miss my organizational prowess or my computer savvy. Summer is coming. I remember the beginning of coming to Cedar Cross. Do you know who the superintendent was when I came here? That's right, Reverend Alan Ocampo, right there. Come on, wave your hand. There he is. Well, you know, Alan was pretty honest with me about things when I was coming here, but I decided to go to the former district superintendent and Fred Greg Jackson. Asked him, what do you think about this church? And what it says is, you have nowhere to go but up. I've told you many times I believe that every institution has a spirit. John of Patmos wrote to the angel of the churches. The angel. Coming here, I recognized that the angel of Cedar Cross was forlorn. Not angry, but not really trusting the future or the church or the leadership. It was a mood of despondency. One of the things that brought us out of all that was pride. Somebody said the anniversary is on the 8th for how many years? 10 years since we became a reconciling congregation? What was it? 9. Darn. 9. And we were really on a roll during that time, weren't we? Another thing I noticed that our youth group was the largest youth group to go to all the retreats. We were the largest. And then change came. Tragedy and pandemic. That's our story too. Occasionally muse that over the 13 years I've been here, maybe you've really had 2 pastors because I've become a different person. We're always changing. I have sometimes worried whether my sorrow has been affected the body here like the pandemic. I know that in a previous life I was much more funny. A book. Went to the Everett Library, the Evergreen branch, and came across a book by a man named Mike Mariani. The title is What Doesn't Kill Us Makes Us. Who We Become After Tragedy and Trauma. He's responding to the famous Nietzsche quote, out of the schools of war, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. And Mariani says, no, it doesn't. The suffering we endure surely makes us, doesn't necessarily make us stronger. It will make us more sorrowful, but it will also make us more wise and compassionate and keenly aware. I was so delighted when I read in his book that he did not like the popular word in grief study, resilient. Studies show, it says, that some children seem to be able to do these things after loss, have autonomy and self-confidence. In other words, there are some people who are more resilient than others. What I hear in that is some are winners and some are losers. Everything's a contest. In contrast to this, I remember years ago when the tsunami hit Japan in 2011. I watched for hours on the screen watching people. And whenever two people crossed each other, they would say, "Gambarimasu, gambarimasu." Which is like, we shall persevere and endure together. In his book, Mariani uses the word fortitude, and I want to read a little bit of this for you. The Cambridge Dictionary defines fortitude as simply courage over a long period. The Second Dictionary defines it as mental and emotional strength in facing difficulty, adversity, danger, or temptation courageously. For my part, I define fortitude as the active choice to draw upon our wherewithal under harrowing circumstances, marked by an intense, often thankless effort demanded day after day. Demonstrating fortitude does not imply that we are growing stronger from our adversities, though, nor that we are changing us to any sort of positive and grandizing way. Fortitude is a word that has not been cluttered with romance and glorification, the way terms like resilience, valor, bravery, and indeed strength have. Its value and merit lie instead in its sparseness and austerity, the way it does not accommodate our fantasies of how hardship confers honor or insinuate a spectator's admiring gaze. Fortitude is the de-glamorized act of survival, of getting through the day amid toil and strain for no other reason than to meet the next storm. This could be a definition of gambarimasu too. We've endured a lot. Indeed, we have in some ways been diminished, but we have experienced and I have seen gambarimasu in all of you. I don't feel that the saying that we will be stronger through our adversity is a very good one. It does invite competition into the way we see things. This is part of what American culture is. What I do think is that it brings us to be a little wiser, more accepting, patient, and kind. I think probably one of our problems is wanting to be stronger rather than wise, to be in control. When I look now at where we are, I think Cedar Cross is situated in a great place. Yes, we have lost a lot, but we have grown in grace. I think we are more wise. During this time of difficulty, I would also say that the Spirit of God has never left us. I don't know about you, but throughout this time and other times in my life, I see these things that happen. Little moments of grace. Sometimes I think, that eagle is following me. I've actually had that experience. And then I ask myself, why did I go to the evergreen branch of the library that day? I almost always go to the one downtown. There have been many times where I go into the library and I swear God has put that book before me. The Spirit has not been absent. And the Spirit of Cedar Cross today is promising and hopeful. You all are alive. We have wonderful values: openness, compassion, inclusivity, nurturing children, spiritual growth, being progressive and seeking social justice, integrity, and being a servant. These are wonderful values to live by. I will say thank you for your fortitude, but also for your support of me and your faithfulness to Cedar Cross over these years. One final thing that I want to say. I think that when we went to the Seattle Pride Parade, it was a turning point in the life of this church. Something happened there where I think collectively, we saw the Spirit again in a difficult time. And it was like a burst of the Spirit, and after that, we were transformed. So I want to end with some slides. These are of our first trip to the Seattle Pride